I'm Susan Choi, and this is a new episode of FI Spotlight. Today, we are talking about health and wellness. What are the current drivers behind this trillion-dollar category? What are the most talked about topics amongst consumers? And is age a factor in the changing nature of consumer habits? Here with me to dive into these issues is Laurie Demeritt, CEO of consulting firm, the Hartman Group. Laurie, thanks so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
It is an honor having you here. Let's get into it. So your group have recently come out with a new report, really focusing on the health and wellness industry, consumer habits, changing nature of consumer preferences, good insights for retailers. What are two key themes that you focused on and why?
Yeah, we focused on two things with this particular study. One was vitality and the other was longevity. And the reasons we focused on those, it's really this evolution that we've seen amongst consumers. Going back even, let's say, 2 to 3 decades ago, we'd hear consumers say things around the idea of living as well as possible for as long as possible. And now that they've become a little more sophisticated and articulate about health and wellness, we're seeing these themes of vitality and longevity be expressed by a wide swath of consumers.
When it comes to this topic of longevity, did you find that it was focused on by mainly, generations that are aging, they're getting closer to that, elderly category, or did you find that people across all age ranges were interested in that topic? Can you give more insights about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think somewhat surprisingly, we found no statistically significant difference in terms of how the youngest and the oldest generations were thinking about longevity. So just as many Gen Z at 66% as boomers, just slightly higher at 67%, say that they care about longevity. Now, that doesn't mean that they think about it in exactly the same way. And so obviously, due to life stage and lifestyle differences, what that means to them differs. However, we found that rather than thinking about sort of a lifespan, as it were, as we did in the past, it's now more about the vitality span. So it's not just living as long as they can, but remaining physically active, remaining mentally competent, having your cognition in place. And so as younger consumers think about that means long term, they're thinking about kind of strategies around diet and exercise. Whereas for boomers, it's much more tangible, it's much more closer in. And so how they enact on those ideas around longevity differ from generation to generation.
I totally get that. They don't want to be sitting around in a chair and eating applesauce. They want to be out there, right?
Exactly.
Hiking and having that full energy. Such a key word, right? In this day and age, energy. Everyone wants more of that. Laurie, let's talk about along those lines. Let's talk more about that vitality. It said in your report, 81% of consumers are really focused on this vitality. It's really important to them. Break it down more for us. Can you give us more insights about what you guys found about this keyword, vitality?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a word that some consumers do use, excuse me, but there's a lot of words around it that they use as well. But at its essence, it's really about this high quality of life, and that encompasses the physical, the mental, the emotional, and even the social aspects of health and wellness. And so, how consumers express it is that I want to have like a good day to day life, feel happy with myself, feel good about myself, and have that be over the long term. And I think the real key here and the change we've seen is that a full 88% of consumers say that mental and emotional health is just as important as physical health. And that's what I think that idea of vitality really brings together. It's not just the physicality of not being sick, of being able to move and do what you want to do, but it's feeling good about it, having strong friendships, looking forward to the future. And so it's this multifaceted word now that means so much to so many people, and they're activating on it in different ways.
That's so interesting right there about really having a fulfilling life, maintaining great relationships, being a part of the community. Um, Laurie, tell us about these two key words, longevity and vitality. How does that shape changing consumer attitudes, especially in this day and age when we are finding that consumer preferences are just constantly evolving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we see sort of wellness culture take shape, right? Almost all consumers in some way, shape, or form are involved in it. And there's so many products and services out there that are speaking to it as well. And so they're reframing how they think about certain things. And I think one obvious one is just how they think about aging. And so, even though maybe, as I noted earlier, if you are an older consumer, it might be kind of more tangible and closer in, we're seeing younger consumers think about it as well. So, as they think about aging, we've really changed culturally how we perceive it. So in the past, going back 30 years, maybe it was about just ignoring age, denying it, right? And then there was this kind of anti-age movement, so sort of a resisting of aging. And then it was about enhancing or aging more gracefully. And what we're seeing in today's cultures, it's really about optimizing. And so using things like science, technology, changing cultural perspectives about what it means to age. And so this idea of optimization, and that's now going back to those kind of words around things like longevity and vitality and vibrancy day to day. And I think the key here, the big takeaway is this idea of personalization. So consumers are saying, I want foods and beverages that are right for me, that meet my needs, that are going to keep me as healthy as I can for as long as possible. And so whether it's genetics or lifestyles or where someone lives, this idea of personalization and the fact that they believe that manufacturers should be able to personalize these food products for their needs is really important. So we think we're going to see a lot of innovation in that space in the upcoming years.
All right, CEO of the Hartman Group, Laurie Demeritt. Laurie, thanks again for joining me today. It was really insightful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up another FI Spotlight. I'm your host, Susan Choi. Don't forget, if you want to check out more of our great content, just click on this playlist. Till next time, take care.